Well, thanks for everybody being here today. We're excited for this discussion, for this panel. That was a video we put together a couple of years ago as we were thinking about building the Wagoneer. And it was kind of our introduction into the industry on putting a build together and learning how relationships really work in the industry on these vehicles. Uh, for probably the last 10 years, we've helped manufacturers place product and connect with shops and manufacturers connecting with each other. But that was our first opportunity to actually build our own vehicle and work with companies. And so it was a real eye opener on how that all works in the industry, and it really helped us get to the place we're at now, where we recognize the value that we can bring as CarBuff Network to the industry in helping facilitate connections. So we're excited about the panel. Today we've got Josh Meads and Dave McKelvey from American Autowire. We've got John Jackson from Not Stock Photography. We've got Dave Tucci from Tucci Hot Rods and Dom from Tucci Design. And then we've got my panel, CB7, group of guys, and I'll introduce them real quick. They'll have the opportunity to ask some questions. And that's Matt Zerbrick with 5 O'Clock Garage, Dom Tucci, Dom's on the panel, but Dom Tucci Design, Zach Zamudio with Pyramid Optimized Design, Brent Hughes with Full Size Jeep. We've got Michael Pettis from Eddie's Rod and Custom, Kyle Kuhnhausen from KMC, Kuhnhausen Metal Concepts, my brother Spencer Campbell, Mike Kidd from Tremic Transmissions, Tom Maddock from Tom Shop. Some of you may have seen Tom on Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Tom works a lot with those guys and built their off-road wrecker, does a lot of fabrication. And then Danny Augusta, third generation steel rubber products. Danny is marketing and sales over at Steel Rubber Products, and I appreciate these guys being on this call as well. We started this last month with the initiative to talk about relationships in the industry. There's a lot of discussion around influencers versus brand ambassadors, and we decided let's just tackle this conversation and kind of help the industry reframe expectations as a whole on what it means to represent a brand and how to build relationships in the industry. And so today, talking with American Autowire, I met American Autowire through Dave and Dom Tucci, and been working with American Autowire now, I think, for maybe 9 years or so. And so we'll begin. I'd like these guys to introduce themselves, take a couple minutes, talk about what you do as a company, and maybe in your positions in your companies, what you do specifically. And then for the Tucci's, I've got a short video I'm going to show, a 3-minute video I'm going to show for those guys. And then John, you'll kind of wrap up the panel, and then we will turn it over to CB7 and in the group to start discussing. So I guess we'll start with Dave, if you don't mind leading us off. Dave, just talk a little bit about American Autowire.
Sure. My name's Dave McKelvey. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at American Autowire, and with me is Josh Meads, who's in new product development in our R&D department. But we've been around for 34 years at this point, 36 years at this point. We produce and manufacture in the United States complete wiring systems for GM, Ford and Mopar vehicles. Some other ones that we've gotten into recently are Jeep and Volkswagen and things like that. But for General Motors, we reproduce factory original wiring harnesses, and then we make modified restoration complete systems for GM, Ford, Mopar, and Jeep. And then we make a number of universal wiring systems, which tend to be more popular with some of the more custom vehicles like the Tucci's build. They're a fan of the Highway 22, I believe, and have used that a number of times, but a number of universal systems and wiring system accessories. And we produce all of that here in New Jersey, right outside my office in our shop. And we sell direct to consumers, and we have a network of dealers that's worldwide at this point. And we've grown every year we've been in business. We're continuing to grow this year, and with lots of new products on the horizon. So that's us in a nutshell, but I'll let Josh introduce himself as well.
My name's Josh Meads. I'm with new product development here at American Autowire. I've been here for about 6 years now, almost. This was my first foray into the hot rod industry, and it's been a fun ride. As Dave mentioned, we build everything that we can for GM, Ford, you know, the stuff that's not there, like Mopar or Volkswagen, Jeep. We're definitely always expanding, and that is what our role over here in research and development and new product development is, to find those trends and figure out who's needing what, and if there's a something for someone to you know, that they need, we're developing that for them. And you know, not just servicing the dealers and everyone like that, we also, you know, try to make everything as simple as we can for the guy that is doing one car and that's his only project, and he's been restoring this thing since he was 16, and he might be 30 years later still going at it, but we're going to make everything as easy as for him as we can for the guys that are doing it every day.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Dave. So I'm actually going to do a screen share here real quick and go to your website. So for CarBuff Network, where we fit in the industry is we facilitate a lot of relationships between companies, between manufacturers and shops, and it really all kind of hinges on the builds. The vehicles are what tie all of these companies together, and in general the industry. And so what we do is we have a couple of different feeds that go into the websites of the manufacturers. One is, I'm on American Autowire's homepage. We have a news feed that goes into their site, and whenever a build goes in and tags American Autowire, it automatically goes into the feed. And it also shows events that they plan to attend, new product. If you want to put new product into the CarBuff Network website, it goes onto that news feed and links back to the page on the website of the manufacturer. So there's a lot that goes into that feed. And then the other thing that we do with a lot of the companies is the customer builds. So we're starting to help manufacturers create a database for builds of their customers. And so that it's a great way for people to see what vehicles the products are being used in. But it's also a really great way for manufacturers to work together in promoting the same builds. So I'm going to use the Tucci's Dom's Mercedes as an example here. So this does have the American Autowire wiring harness. And so you can go into that build from American Autowire's website and see the process of the build. and you can also see the companies involved in the build. So I know the Tucci's work with Willwood on most of their builds. QA1 are on most of their builds. And that's the general idea of this is CarBuff Network is kind of it's a bigger platform to show the networks of individual companies. So in this case, the Tucci's, they have a lot of the same companies that they go to that are in their network, and this just shows who they work with. But it's great for the companies involved in the builds because you're able to get exposure on each other's websites in a relevant way. And so it ties everybody together in that way. So that's a little bit about the Tucci's. I'm going to play a video and then we'll just turn it over to Dave and Dom.
My name's Dave Tucci. I own and operate Tucci Hot Rods in Marcy, New York. We started this business in like '96. Before that, I was working as a Maytag repairman, so I would do that during the day, and then at night I would go in the garage and work on my own stuff. We are not afraid of taking on the craziest project. We actually look forward to pushing our limits, because if we don't push our limits, then we won't go to the next level ourselves.
I was only 5 years old when he put up the main shop. I literally grew up in the shop. My name is Dom Tucci. I'm a designer, fabricator, pretty much anything else that we need at Tucci Hot Rods. I learned to weld when I was 7 years old. I would do these projects for school with like bent metal welded, and my teachers in like 5th and 6th grade were like, what the heck? And in college, I realized I was a little bit further ahead than everybody else, and I ended up actually teaching the SolidWorks portion of one of my 3D modeling classes because I knew more than our teacher did in SolidWorks.
Once Dom decided to come full time, and after he graduated college, it's been just us, and it's been amazing. We feed off each other. I respect the talent that he has, and he takes the ideas that I've learned over the 25 years and takes them into his talent to be able to create just amazing stuff. We not only do automotive stuff, we do all kinds of crazy stuff. Over the years, people have come in, wanted this certain thing built, and I would figure out how to build it or fix things that nobody can fix before.
We really use a lot of 3D printing. We keep getting more and more ambitious with the pieces that we 3D print. But you can do really detailed stuff, interior bezels, knobs, switches. You could spend $1 million on one of these cars and customize every single little part of it. But I really love when you're restrained to either a budget, time frame, whatever it is, and you have to, combine an off-the-shelf part here, and then you print something to make it work better, doing things in unique ways that save a ton of money and time, but have a big impact in the end.
Every one of the cars we build, we treat them as we put our heart and soul into all of them, and we want them to go out there and drive them, and they're still cars. More than just the build, we want to enjoy the final product, and that's where we build like a show car quality, but more functionality right now. You can come to us with any problem you have. We'll pretty much solve it, or we'll figure out how to make it work.
All right. I want to thank everybody that texted me and said you couldn't see the video. Sorry about that. All right, Dave and Dom, I'm going to take a couple minutes and talk about a little bit more about you guys, and then we'll go to that point with John.
Okay. Thanks, Trent. Thanks for having us and showing that video. So I started the business 27 years ago, and all I wanted to do was build cool stuff at that point. And trying to collect the companies to create that thing was a big part of us beginning. And you know, American Autowire was one of the first. I mean, I think it had to be 25 years ago that we really started to use them exclusively. And once I found, you know, a way to use them and how they worked, there's really no turning back and no really changing it or doing any other way. You know, it's just been a really, really good relationship we've had. The service we get from them, if we do have a little question, they're right on it. They call me right back. We can work it through right in the car and stuff like that. So that's been really, really helpful, because you have to have the support for companies to be able to do this, and you feel confident in using the parts and pieces, and then giving them to a customer that if they have a problem, it's right there, straightforward. And they said that, you know, when you sell to a regular consumer, everybody is so afraid of wiring, right? They're like, oh my God, there's no way. But you start looking at that, and it's so self-explanatory. The instructions alone, each unit, each phase of it is separated. Really been really a good product. Super happy with everything part of it. So, you know, even Dom started. I have a picture of Dom when he was, oh gosh, 12 maybe, wiring one of the giveaway cars. And that's another thing too, is we've done 11 giveaway cars for Syracuse Nationals. None of that ever makes sense on paper, but we were with the Syracuse Nationals from the beginning, so we don't see anybody else building their giveaway cars if they do build them. And American Autowire has been on board since the beginning of those, and I
mean, we can't do those projects without,
yeah,
you know, supportive companies like you guys.
Right. It's been really really good. But I tell you, we've been thinking about a lot of stuff of what, you know, we're always trying to improve everything, right? So every time we go back to the harness, there's really not much that we can improve on it, to be honest with you. It works, it's consistent, and it's just a really good product. I've taken, when Scott was there, Scott Hughes, I took a picture of I think we had 25 boxes stacked up. And that's another thing too, is the boxes are so good that I keep them afterwards, because we always have extra wiring. So I keep the boxes to go to afterwards, and that's our like separation of this type wire, that type wire, and it's all separated in those boxes. It's pretty cool. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and introduce John. If you guys can introduce John, and then we'll go to that point.
All right, so I'll just start talking. Hey, I'm John Jackson. I guess technically I'm a content creator. Used to be I was just a photographer and videographer, but now I'm a content creator for big companies, magazines. I've photographed for magazines for over 20 years. I have a YouTube channel, a lot of Instagram, do a lot of stuff for big companies. I did all the PPG's corporate hot rod ads and posters and all that for 11 years. Do the Mac Tools calendar, helped O'Reilly's out this past year for their handout calendar, helped Exalta with their calendar. So I do a lot of stuff with paint because I have a kind of a knack for trying to make paint look exactly like it's supposed to look. But I'm also more known because I started out in the business. I drove a 1964 Corvair van, 170,000 miles in a little over 4 years. And now I've moved up to living in a Sprinter van, which has 380,000 miles on it, and it's all custom painted. And we took it to SEMA in 2017. So it had 40,000 miles on since 2017, it's got 385,000 miles on it now. So, but I just travel around, take pictures at all the, get to go. Basically, I just go and look at cars and hang out with cool people who build cars. That's basically what I do for a living.
Yeah, kind of a dream job. Most people don't understand all the time that it takes to actually get to the point that you're at with these companies. And I think you probably understand building relationships as good as most people, which is, I think, the key to getting opportunities with companies like O'Reilly or others that you're able to do that, or PPG. So I know we're going to come back to you, John.
No worries.
I want to know, well, to begin with, we are going to run this till about 2:15 Pacific time. Last time we got it a little bit short, and if you've got to get going, that's totally fine. You can drop off, but I think we'll run it till about 2:15 Pacific time. So to get the panel discussion started, I wanted to start with American Autowire. And the question that I have, Dave, for you is, what, as American Autowire, what do you look for in relationships with brand ambassadors or companies like Tucci Hot Rods? What do you guys look for in those kind of relationships?
I think it's probably similar to what they're looking for from us, which is top quality. And, you know, when we partner with builders, we're looking for groups and companies that build quality vehicles, but then we're also looking on the marketing side of things for brand exposure. And with guys like Dave and Dom, we get that every single time. You know, when you don't officially have a brand ambassador on your payroll, you're basically working for relationships and mutual exposure. So, you know, we like to think we're delivering quality product to those guys, and they're building obviously quality vehicles. And the mutual exposure that we get to grow our brands is paramount. I mean, that's why you sell product. That's why you get into some of these relationships with the builders. You know that on the marketing side of it, you're going to get some great bang for your buck. And we like to think we're providing them with the highest quality product for our little niche in the industry that is available out there. And, you know, Dave and Dom, from day one, before I even started with the company, were delivering that to us. And, you know, that's why anytime there was a project like the giveaway cars at Syracuse, that's a no-brainer for us. We know it's going to be an amazing vehicle. We know there's great marketing exposure mutually, and it's just a win-win for us every time.
So Dave McKelvey, I know you had a question for the Tucci's. You want to go ahead and
start?
Yeah,
it's funny because Dave actually touched on it a little bit, but you know, regarding the brands that you guys regularly use, is there something across the board that manufacturers could do better to support builders like yourselves? We think we're putting the best product out there for you to use, but as far as support and things like that, is there anything that manufacturers should take a closer look at to help support you guys?
We've actually been very fortunate over the years to be together with some of these the industry leaders as far as company goes. I don't know if there's really anything more that you guys could do. We just appreciate the support that we get, if it's, you know, not just giveaway stuff, but just straight out for our customers. Support is huge. I think I rely not rely, but if I don't get the correct support with a product, even if it's the absolute best product in the world, if we don't have relationship and support, it kind of taints it a little bit. When we've always had good support and relationships with all the companies, but that's something, if you work with other people or whatever, we might, be different or connect with people differently. But if, as a company, if you have the support there and be able to answer the phone and whatever and callbacks and have the answers, there's nothing like talking to somebody that's smarter than you on the phone. It's it's very humbling to be able to call and get an answer, and the person you're asking should know more than what you are. So that's a big part of how I come across to the different companies.
Yeah,
I think
it's
also being,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dom.
I was just gonna say being open to, future product development. If we've put in, 25 plus units, maybe there's like a little thing here that, we think could make it, even better, and just being open to those things. Maybe you don't have to, change anything, but just being open to hearing, from people that are using them daily, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a lot of the product improvements that we've made over the last few years have been from feedback from builders. And even, our flagship universal systems, the Highway 15 and Highway 22, that have always been, the go-to wiring systems out there. We just made improvements to those a few years ago based on that kind of feedback. And, one thing that Dave mentioned too is we never have any plans to get rid of our live help on the phones. So we take pride in the fact that if somebody calls our company, they're going to get a live person, but not only get a live person, but like Dave said, you're going to get somebody that actually knows what they're talking about. All of our sales and tech guys are hobbyists and very familiar with our products, to where I'm not hesitant with any of them giving technical advice to whether it's a professional like yourselves or an end user customer. That's something that we really pride ourselves on, and thinks separates us from our competition a little bit, in the fact that you're going to get an answer same day from a live person.
And that goes two ways too. So as a manufacturer could always call on us if you had somebody call and didn't really have, an answer for like a wacky thing happening, you could always call on us, being that we've installed, thousands of these. We've probably come across something along the line that, kind of made our, scratch our head a little bit. But we would love to share, because it's always makes a better product by doing that.
Absolutely, and that's part of the use of the feed on our website that Trent was showing everybody earlier, and seeing what vehicles are equipped with our product. In a couple circumstances, we've had a tech question on a specific vehicle and a kit, and we've found a builder on the CarBuff feed that installed our product in that particular vehicle, and we've called them to ask them a question. So it has, that type of situation that you just mentioned has happened. It's been great to use CarBuff for that type of thing, but then also too, we go to a big show like SEMA, and we think that, we know most of the vehicles that are going to be there equipped with our product, but CarBuff kind of logs all that for us. At least the companies that participate there, and it makes it a lot easier. So we may know there's one particular Tucci vehicle that's going to be there, but if we're on CarBuff, we might see that there might be one or two more that we have to make sure we bring enough tire side placards to drop at all these vehicles, and
Right.
CarBuff makes it very easy to track all that for us. So.
All right, well, let's open it up for questions from the panel from CB7.
All right, who wants to go first, or is it going to be me?
Go for it, Matt.
All right. So, I've jumped in like headfirst into the content space. And I just started following both you guys on Instagram. And it's funny, like we're talking about, like marketing is changing drastically with how it was done 10 years ago. And versus like how ad spends are done, how print media is working, and the whole social media environment, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And I guess one of the things that, kind of looking through your guys' social is like, do like collaborations, how do you like, have you explored those markets with the importance of like doing a reel, like a video, a TikTok, like as much as it sounds goofy or like out of the ordinary. I had a meeting with Ram's marketing team this morning, and like the girl who we met with, she's like, get on TikTok. It just helps explode one, your views, but also the products that you're making. And it's just, I was like reaching out to different companies, even though you might be in a specialty hot rod market. But like, how do you guys look at those, like those other avenues for marketing? Because at the end of the day, like the world's changing so fast when it comes to how information's getting to people. And like, are like, do you look at like, everyone's got like a marketing team of some sort, but how do you look at where you spend your dollars versus what you're getting in return?
That is a very tough question to answer, and I'll say that because advertising is, even digital advertising is one of the hardest things to track return on investment. TikTok is something that's, I'll say it's on our radar, but we haven't given that full consideration yet. And the main reason is we have a person that does our social media for us, and she is not on TikTok. It doesn't mean we can't add it to our marketing portfolio, but it's on our radar. And we know obviously there's a lot of debate about TikTok currently, but I mean, if that goes away, it'll definitely be a platform that we consider. And you're right, our industry is very strange when it comes to marketing because so many other industries have done away with print, and print in our industry is still huge. And we saw a lot of titles go away a few years ago, and some from that others came out of it. And print is still huge for us, but we're definitely learning through the guidance of our social media representative how to capitalize a lot more on the digital platforms, and it's working very well for us, and it is definitely easier to track. But TikTok is something that I will maybe embarrassingly say I'm not as familiar with, but Instagram, Facebook, obviously CarBuff Network, I consider to be social media for our industry specifically. And we have a full-blown YouTube channel with hundreds of how-to videos and things like that. Staying ahead of the curve is very difficult, especially in an industry that's typically behind it. So challenging to say the least.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of the things that we've learned in the past probably 4 weeks on our side of my business is the collaborations you can do of if you're working with a company and they like have a good reel or something on TikTok, it's making sure that you make that collaboration across the board because it helps expand it so much more. I mean, we've been pushing reels pretty much every day, and most of them are getting 100,000 hits plus. We've got one that in almost 3 days went 1.1 million. And it's amazing when a cool project has like, a great production or something that's informative, how many more eyes you can reach. I mean, yes, like we're in a, very niche market, but automotive it's a lifestyle. And, just from some of the things I've learned over the last week, it's like, you got to try everything and learn what works.
Absolutely.
So I've got a question real quick for John, along the lines of the print versus media. What do you see? I mean, you've been around print for the last, 20 years, and it transitioning into digital. From where you're at, what do you see in the print world versus the digital media?
Of course, I like print because I like to see everything I photograph, on paper. But what we're starting to notice, and then also going back to what he said with the TikTok stuff is, you kind of have to know who your market is and bring in the new market without alienating the old market. You know what I'm saying? So there are a lot of young people coming up in the industry, and you want to get their views because they're not always in the print magazines. It's because they grew up looking at stuff, and there's really no good, and I don't care what anybody says, like an online magazine when you go into it where people can advertise and you can look at car features and go in depth in them like there should. And really it's YouTube, because YouTube really gets you in depth into the cars now. And I saw a stat the other day that YouTube is actually one of the top search engines in the US, especially since Google bought them. And more people search on YouTube than they actually search on on Google for how to do stuff or looking for a product. So like having a large YouTube following like American Autowire has, especially with content on how to do it, that's probably just as important as anything else. But as far as TikTok and stuff, you can get like millions of views, but I don't know if it really translates. I mean, depending on your product, if that's your market for it. Because I know Holly does a lot of stuff where they give stuff to influencers and stuff like that, and it gets millions of views. But I'm not really sure Holly's return on that, because a lot of it's someone looking at a person, not at what the actual part is. They go out and do burnouts and stuff like that. And I don't know if that really drives back into it. And it's a tough decision for all companies, because print, it's tough. It's hanging on there by print. Because I think you had Brian Brennan on the last one of these you did, and we talk about it all the time. And it's like they're doing all the how-to articles and stuff, but it's just, I mean, it's tough for everybody. I mean, because we're right on that fine line. I mean, 10 years from now, I might be like, oh yeah, we just do this now. And it's like, but we're at that point now that you have to decide. And I think everybody should be on every platform, even if it is just to save your name. Because if you don't save American Autowire on TikTok, someone else is going to grab American Autowire on TikTok. And then you got to be American Autowire 123 or something like that. And it's harder for people that want to find American Autowire to find you. But then also on the collaborative stuff too, we've been doing a lot of that too, is whenever we shoot stuff for BBT or something like that, like you add them as a collaborator on, you're allowed 5 on Instagram. And that's helped a lot on everybody, because their audience might be different than your audience, and so forth and so forth. So if you can get collaborators on everything, and then, but there's a lot of 60-year-old hot rod builders and buyers that aren't on any social media and barely on Facebook, so I mean, it is tough. I mean, there is no, hey, do this and you win, I mean, and views don't mean dollars. So I mean, you just kind of have to run that fine line where you just throw a bunch of it at the wall and hope it sticks.
Yeah. And that's really the place, I think, where the industry's been for the last 10 years, just trying to figure out what works, and our technology in the automotive aftermarket, we're kind of slow.
Jump back into that for 1 second. Sorry, but that's what we run into is like, we've been promised this thing that was going to be, oh, this is going to be better than magazines. We'll be able to swipe through it on our iPads and have a good time with it, and try not to sound like an old man while I'm doing this. But, if say Hot Rod posts a car that they shot in print on their online on Monday, by Wednesday, there's 7 more cars in front of it. So it's not like there's no any anticipation. It's instant. So if they shoot your car and put it online, end of the week, there's 100 cars in front of it. So, I mean, stuff just goes away so fast now compared to what there is. And there's so many great cars out there. And it's like, a lot of times I'll go to a local car show and I'll be like, man, this car's awesome. Oh, it was built 6 years ago. I was like, I've never even seen this, And I feel like even though we get more opportunity to see stuff, we see way less now, which is crazy. So, But yeah, I don't have an answer for it.
So kind of on that, like you talked about hot rod and like motor trend, and I feel like that's across the board where it gets too much on there too fast. So like one of the things that we've been doing is any project that we're involved with, we'll do multiple days, but showing different aspects of it. Whether it's from, you know, like we have like our content channel starts rolling out, I think tomorrow. We've been filming the last 6 weeks, and we're trying to, you know, where it's like it's almost like a follow along. So it's like this is where we started, you know, all the way through the build process over to the end. So it keeps people engaged. But also one of the things that we're focused on, which is something we actually did yesterday, is, you know, being informative. Like, yeah, we're going to build something really dumb and fun, but we're also going to explain why we went to this. We went to, you know, yesterday I was at Magnuson Superchargers. We were at their dyno. I brought all my Demon Superchargers. We put them on their dyno. We ran a bunch of tests. We talked to the engineers behind all the builds, like of why they developed these products, and they were literally able to explain, you know, why there's a 2650, why they have, you know, a 3.1, why they have the 3650. Because a lot of people don't know that. And so like I think in like the automotive space, there's a lot of brand names out there that just get like they become like the Kleenex brand name of the world, and so that's all anyone knows. And so, you know, we partnered up with them to show the kind of the behind the scenes, the engineering, why we're using this product, but be able to carry that through a whole build. Because at the end of the day, like some big manufacturer will pay good money for that stuff because the audience that we can reach. And so that's probably the one thing I do hate about social media is how quick you can scroll. And it's, you know, how do you captivate that person in the first 5 seconds? Like that is everything, is that first 5 seconds.
Yeah, every YouTube video I do starts with either blower surge or a burnout. You know, it's
Yeah.
you got to just keep them engaged right off the bat.
Yep.
You know? So
It's the double-edged sword for sure that you got to catch their attention, but the attention spans get shorter and shorter. So turning it into relevant, I mean, it's different. You talk about how-tos, and someone will sit there on a how-to for 10 to 20 minutes if they're trying to figure something out, versus your typical social media scroll where if you don't have them in the first minute or second or two, they're gone. So how do you balance that out? And I think that's interesting that the search engine, highest used search engine on how to is YouTube. Never would have guessed that. But yeah.
I'll find those numbers and send it over to you. I meant to do it before this and I totally forgot. So, but I'll send you that information on the YouTube as a search engine. So
I believe it. I mean, I'm thinking about my own stuff that I'm looking for how-tos, and makes sense to go to YouTube because you want to watch it rather than read about it. You know, at least for a how-to, I'd rather see how it's done and listen to someone kind of guide me through it, rather than read instructions, I guess, which is common for any of us guys, right? We don't really like to read instructions.
And you're covering different, you know, like you go back to like simple grade school stuff, you're covering different senses, whether it's, you know, you're covering, you know, eyes, hearing, voice, and everyone's stronger in different areas. And that's why I think YouTube's such a successful platform. I mean, we use it all the time for, you know, random stuff. We're like, how in the world do we get to this? And then all of a sudden there's a random video out there and you're like, well, that just cut the whole day down to 1 hour now.
Yep.
I think listening to some of the stuff that John said, he really hit the nail on the head on a bunch of stuff that I've thought about also. And it kind of just brings like to the forefront that, you know, the whole purpose of the CB7 and our meeting today is trying to direct the industry or right the industry, however you want to look at it, back to something that we all want to see, you know, as people that are in this industry. You know, I'm 33. I hope to be here when I'm 66, still doing what I'm doing. And if we don't, you know, show, you know, everybody's throwing stuff to see what sticks. If we don't show them what we want, then we're not really helping progress. So, you know, think about subscribing to that magazine, even if it's, you know, $40 a year or, you know, whatever it is. You know, just we got to keep some of this stuff alive. Subscribe to that magazine, don't consume that content you don't want to see, where we're not focused on education or you know, things that are learning, or cool stuff's cool too, but think of how it's being presented. Like if you're supporting that influencer type that is not knowledgeable, not sharing really like relevant content, and then companies that's what they look at. They're looking at what the algorithm's going to push, and the algorithm's going to push that flashy, catchy stuff where you're maybe not consuming the right part of that content. So just, you know, be cognizant of what you're checking out, be cognizant of what you're doing to actually support the marketing efforts in the industry, because the way it works out is that, you know, there's 10% of the companies have 90% of the marketing dollars, is probably how it ends up being. So, and that doesn't necessarily a good thing, because more of the niche places, like say Tucci Hot Rods, I know Dom makes some really cool tools. Those aren't really necessarily going to get pushed quite like, you know, say like a Holly product or one of their family of companies. So it's kind of our job as people that are in it to kind of show through our actions what we want to make a better place here in a decade, to make sure that we still have magazines around and things like that. Because maybe I just grew up right at the perfect time where I grew up reading the magazines, but then transitioned into the social media world we have today. So I kind of understand both sides of that. But like, to me, you could keep the trophy, you could keep the light count, all that. Like when I've had cars like magazine, there's nothing more important like that's the trophy, that's the real trophy in the thing. So yeah, just think about that and how we can facilitate that, and maybe that's just one small step that we can all make to, you know, try to accomplish what we're all here to accomplish.
Can I add something here?
Absolutely.
One of the other things in contribution to what Kyle's kind of saying and everybody's talking about here is, I think with this kind of ADHD world that we live in, everybody wants like whatever they want right now, and they scroll through and they go, oh yeah, this is cool, this is cool. Kind of what John's saying is like, you're not even really looking at the car, you're just scrolling to the next freaking car. And one of the things that I think is interesting that I really miss from, you know, and some of the good magazines still do this well, but there's not like critical information easily accessible. Like I'll see a car that I'll freaking hate, I don't like anything about it, but it sits good and I want to know exactly the tire sizes, and that's all I care about. And I have to watch a freaking 20-minute YouTube video to try to fit. It's a car I don't even like, but I have to watch the whole video and hopefully they'll call out the tire size or whatever. But it's like, you know, back in the day, like, or still Rada's Journal or whoever, like they'll give you all that information just on like an easy like sheet. And then, you know, you might not even read the article, but you can look on the spec sheet and go like, oh, that's this, that's this. And I think some of that stuff gets overlooked. And then ironically, that's where all the vendors and the, you know, the manufacturers, that's their opportunity to be called out. Half the time they're not even getting called out, which I think what Trent's talking about all the time about influencers versus, you know, brand ambassadors. And it's like, I think the big difference is like, you're not getting quality information because these people don't even know the industry they're a part of necessarily, you know? So for us that are in the build process or whatever, we're looking for like fine-tuned information, you know, and the details basically.
Well, and you know, this is the shameless plug for building your car profile, but I mean, that's really when we were talking about CarBuff 15 years ago, whenever we started really kind of thinking about it, that's what we felt like was needed in the industry. Like, let's get back to the roots of this stuff. If I see a car that wins a race and I really want to know, you know, some aspect of it, how do I find that? Because often there are details that are just not mentioned. And that's why we built CarBuff the way we did. It's really revolves around the vehicles, and then everything else is just a result of that vehicle profile. So the company's involved, where it's going, but the defined details, And in the first company that we ever started talking to was Locar. And Jonathan Goolsby, Josh Henning and Jonathan Goolsby introduced me to Brian Downard at SEMA when the first time we ever went to SEMA. And it was less than a 1-minute conversation. Jonathan introduced me, and Brian said, "It's nice to meet you, but I just don't have time to talk to you. I'm here to sell." That was it. And turns out Brian's one of my closest friends in the industry now. But what he really kind of grabbed onto with CarBuff is that pretty much every Locar product out there, you just can't see it. If it's a shift handle, you can see that, or the pedals, but there's so many products that Locar builds, manufactures, that no one will ever know it was theirs. And so that's really what we want to help promote, is these are important parts of the build. Wiring's another good example of that, that if somebody wants to build a car, it's a part of the car that just, it's essential for it. But how do you find out whose wiring was in it, or whose throttle cable, or whatever the case is? Anyways, that's why we did what we did initially with CarBuff, was because we wanted to help kind of uncover the DNA of the builds. To your point, Zach. I have a question for Brent with BJ's. Brent, can you, this is kind of an interesting thing. I find it fascinating learning about businesses and how they start. Often they're started in a basement or in a garage as a part-time hobby. Brent, would you just take a couple minutes and just tell us how BJ's was started? And just curious how you have built your business into being probably and this is just my opinion, but we've learned of a lot of companies in the full-size Jeep market. It's a small community, and you're probably the most respected brand overall from what I've seen in the full-size Jeep community as an authority in that. So, Brent.
Well, I bought a 79 Jeep Cherokee back in the day, and I could find parts for it, and it was frustrating because if I wanted 6 different parts, I had to find go to 6 different companies. And I thought to myself, somebody should really do something about that. And then back in 2001, I broke my ankle and I couldn't work. So I bought some stuff, put it on eBay, and realized that people wanted this stuff. People kept calling me, and then I put a shelf in my room, in my bedroom, and just put some stuff on the shelf. And it always made me laugh because people would call me and like, "Hey, do you have this in stock?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let me go check the warehouse." And I put them on hold and look at my shelf, and yep, it's there. I knew it was there, but I had to make it seem bigger than it was. And then just over the few years, we built it. And then in 2006, my son was born. I had to make a decision I was working a manager at a grocery store, and I had to make a decision, one or the other. And I decided to put everything into this, and it was the right decision. So that's kind of, it started as a shelf in my bedroom, moved to 2 shelves in my closet. And then when I got married, we bought a house, and we dedicated 1 bedroom to this, and then it moved to a shop, and then a bigger shop. And now we're in a 6,000 or 7,000 square foot warehouse. So it's really progressed.
So we were on the Wagoneer. BJ's is a big part of that build, and that's how I got to know Brent. I think what's really cool about this industry is there's not one way to build a company in it. But what doesn't change from one company to another is that every company thrives on relationships. And it always comes back to relationships in our industry. You can't fake a relationship. It takes time to build them. And what I always tell people is that without your relationships or your reputation, you have nothing in this industry. Because you can lose a relationship or a reputation a lot faster than you can build it. And so I think when we're talking about influencers, and Kyle talks about this, Kuhnhausen talks about this a lot. I want to know, as far as relationships go, trying to think of who we haven't heard from on this. Let's, Michael.
Yeah,
if you're on
actually,
the
I'm
call.
just going to touch base on that because
Yeah.
Dave touched on it a little earlier. And communication, I mean, relationships is huge, and it definitely can make or break even the best manufacturers of the best parts, in my opinion. I work with a lot of different companies, and a lot of companies, you know, treat it differently as far as who you're communicating with, that sort of thing. I kind of have a question for American Autowire. It's like, you know, how do you go about it? Do you have one person that you know, set aside to work with ambassadors or that sort of thing? Or do you just, you know, whoever answers the phone call, that sort of thing? Because it is really nice to have somebody that, you know, you can call, get all the answers. If they don't have the answers, they'll get somebody that will have the answers for you. It's just, you know, it's a two-way street. And I think Dave even touched on it. You know, you feel free to reach out to us as much as possible. Like, I don't care if you just want to call and chit chat and just see how things are going. But it's just opens up that line of communication, and then it helps build that relationship to the point of, you know, I'd call, you know, you a friend in the industry. So I don't know how you guys go about it there, or
Well, that's a great question. And our sales and marketing group is very small. And if you call in and speak to a live person, if that person isn't the right one to talk to, within a few seconds, they'll get that right person on the phone. There's a couple of us that pretty much handle anything like that, having to do with, you know, brand ambassadors or partnerships and things like that. There's a few of us here that primarily work on that stuff, but the entire sales group, which is made up of 8 people at this point, they're all familiar with, at least if I'm not available or one of the other guys isn't available, they know what kind of information to get, and then we can work with you directly. It is definitely a two-way street. And, you know, I think a subject that some of us talked about last week was, you know, weeding out the difference between someone that you truly want to partner with versus someone that's just looking for free product. And I know if there's any other manufacturers on the call listening, we've all dealt with it. And, you know, that's what makes our job a little bit harder, is trying to figure out who it is that we want to partner with. In most cases, it winds up being pretty obvious early on, whether it's someone we want to work with. And, you know, yeah, I'd love all of our partnerships to be like we have with the Tucci's. That would be outstanding. They just don't all pan out that way. And we've learned some hard lessons over the years with others, but it's, I forget who was talking about reputation, but your reputation is everything. And, you know, when we're kind of, as a manufacturer, you're almost putting your reputation in the hands of someone else to represent you and represent you well. So it's very difficult and tough to kind of weed through what's not real and who truly does want to build that kind of relationship. But yeah.
Well, and I would say, so on this call, I know Michael, you guys work with Ron Francis
Yep.
wiring very closely. Tucci's worked with American Autowire and has for years. And
Way to throw me under the bus there.
no, I actually
was
think,
joking.
because I know they're on the call too, so they're watching this. I just wanted to make sure they know you're loyal. But
Yeah.
I think it's so Bobby Alloway is really good about this. He talks about relationships and how important they are, and he's probably one of the, you know, in the industry, probably somebody that is as loyal as anybody to relationships. Something I've learned is that you can have 3, 4, 5 of the same type of product, companies that manufacture the same type of product, and they may all be very good products. At the end of the day, as a builder, you've got to make a choice on what product you're going to go with, because there's a good chance that there's multiple options for you guys at the level that you build. And so I think it's really important as brands, as manufacturers, to understand how a shop picks the products that they go with, because once you've picked a product and you start to develop a relationship, you're going to stick around until the company either sells, which has happened in our industry, and then you start looking, because the product either might start going down in quality or the relationship's just gone. And then there's another company that you can build a relationship with, or wants to build a relationship with your shop. And so it starts going down that road with a new company and a new relationship. And so what I want to point out to the manufacturers on the call is that you have current customers that are probably ideal brand ambassadors because they're loyal to your brand. And so building relationships with those current customers, I think, is the best opportunity for building brand ambassador relationships. So my question to the Tucci's, going back to, and Dom, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, knowing that Dave has been for a long time kind of been the lead at Tucci Hot Rods for building relationships, but Dom has his own relationships that he's started building with Ford and other brands. What do you look for, Dom, in either a brand or in a relationship? What takes you in a direction to work with a company long term? What do you look for?
Well, you know, I grew up in the shop, so I grew up going to car shows and following him around as he went and talked to different companies, and I saw how he interacted with those companies and how he was friends with, you know, those people, and you know, how he treated them. And so the way that I always went about, you know, approaching a company for something is that, you know, it's a partnership. I'm not asking for something for nothing. I want it to be like, you know, like as beneficial from my end as it is from theirs, you know. So what I look for, you know, obviously like a, you know, a good product first and foremost, but you know, I also look for different, you know, more opportunities in marketing. You know, if they have a good social following or they're doing events and stuff, you know, maybe we link up that way, you know. I don't know, just, you know, I learned a lot from watching him, and you know, and how to deal with these companies and how to, you know, make friends, you know. And he's, you know, it shows with him working with the same companies for 25 years. You don't do that by, you know, burning people or, you know, not holding up your end of the bargain.
Yeah. And I'd just like to add, you guys, and they know this because I've told them before, but the Tucci's are some of the most humble people. And I wanted to show that video because you guys actually talk about yourselves, but in general, you don't. You like to actually perform and just have your products speak for itself. And I think that's probably endearing to companies, manufacturers that look for people like that actually do more than what they say they'll do and represent a brand in a way that's going to help the brand look good to people. And so there's a lot, I think, that goes with representing brands, representing companies. When a manufacturer is looking for someone to represent their brand, it's got to be somebody that they have a relationship with, someone they would want to work with, somebody that they don't worry about is going to say something crazy or light their car on fire, or, you know, whatever the case is. And I say that kind of joking, but the reality is doing something that might jeopardize the integrity of the brands that you represent, because that's a big deal for manufacturers to put their name on or with companies out there, shops out there. So for you guys, I know you look for good quality product. You look for companies that you can build lasting relationships with. But I also think it's important for manufacturers on this call to understand the way you guys, and I'm not trying to make a sales pitch to work with Tucci Hot Rods, but the way you guys do things is you do a lot of research and development in your shop for the brands that you work with. And so it's not just this, and that's, Dom, I think what you're talking about, this two-way, you want to give as much as they give. That's what I see in the relationship with the brands, is actually being able to get good feedback from the builders. If there's a product that needs maybe something will make it a little bit better, the manufacturers need to be willing to listen and actually put that into action, and have enough trust and respect in the shops that they work with that they know they're getting good feedback. So I think that's another part of the relationship side of it, that there's that level of trust that you almost become an extension of that manufacturer's team in a lot of ways too.
There's a lot of products that we've used that we really believe in. And even though we haven't had a relationship with them directly, we would love to, because we believe in their product that much, right? So there's a couple have turned out like that, where we've used it and it's like, man, this is a really good product. We need to tell them that they have a really good product. And it's turned out well. So we're in the opposite way. Instead of calling and ordering the part and then using it, we've used it, you know, and then reached out to the company to tell them how good it was. And, you know, then we created a relationship that way. So we're really looking to trying to make the best product, vehicle, whatever we're doing. We're just trying to make it as best we can and use the correct components for what we're doing, you know. And it's what I've been trying to do for 27 years, is, you know, try to get connected with the correct companies. And what you're doing with this is a way to do that, supercharged kind of, you know, you're helping everybody figure out how to do that. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, to cold call somebody and talk to them about their product or whatever. I never had a problem with that. But a lot of people do. And I think doing it like this, you know, with CarBuff is a good way to get everybody connected, you know, because we're all cool people. I mean, you guys are all cool people to be able to be associated with Aviat and everything. We're very fortunate.
Yeah, we all are. I think we all feel that way. It really does come back to the relationships. And I think just to kind of wrap this up, I just wanted to ask John one more question. Because John, you connect with a lot of people manufacturers' shops. You take pictures of a lot of the coolest cars. My question is, how do you decide which shop you're gonna plug the van into when you're on the road?
Well, if they have RV hookups, they get premium me showing up time. But like I always joke, anytime I go through the Midwest, I'm plugged into Troy at BBT's, and he has outdoor plugs. So he sometimes he wakes up and I'm parked in front of his shop. But yeah, so I just kind of wing it. You know, you never know where I'm going to show up. And Dave and Dom have been really nice because they always have room for me. And then I think the last time I was there, I had everything out of the van in their driveway and then reloading it all back into the van because the van needs that every once in a while. So yeah, because last year was my off year. I only drove 68,000 miles, but I blew a motor last year in the Sprinter, but I still photographed 211 cars. So
well, on a little more serious note, what do you look for in when you're shooting cars? Is it typically you're going after a car that a manufacturer or somebody wants you to shoot, or do you also get to say, hey, that's a super cool car, I just want to shoot it and I want to show that to a manufacturer that really needs to use it? How do you identify that stuff?
I'm lucky that and again, social media helps out a lot with this when you see really cool cars pop up. So it's really beneficial for manufacturers and people who build to stay on top of their social media, because I mean it's just as important as saying having an ad or having a car featured as far as getting work. But a lot of times, you know, it's, you know, stuff wins big. I used to build my whole business off of just going to shops in the middle of nowhere because everybody wants to shoot chips cars and stuff like that. But now I get sent a lot of places. Or if you find stuff like when I was doing the work for PPG, I would push cars toward them. They used to joke that I was a dot connector. So anybody I felt like should know somebody. So if someone's building a car, I want them to know manufacturers. And then, you know, I want those manufacturers to know them and stuff. But a lot of times it's just, I'm one of those ones, I just shoot cars because they're cool. In fact, this Riviera here was South City Rod and Customs Riviera. When I was shooting it, Bill was like, this has already been shot for every magazine. What are you shooting it for? So this Prince actually belongs in our bathroom. So that's what the photo shoot was actually for. And my wife, every time she sees me shoot a Buick Riviera, she goes, well, I guess we're not getting paid for this one, are we? So, but it's one of those ones where, you know, there's just so much good stuff out there. I mean, we're not at a loss for great cars and great builds. Like I can't wait to go to New York and shoot that Mercedes. You know, it's like, and I'm lucky that I started out building mini trucks when I was a kid because that's all I could afford to build. But if I would have got stuck in a niche where it's like, oh, it's 32 Fords or nothing. I mean, look at all the stuff Dom and Dave do is because it's not, oh, all we can do is this, you know. And I think that's the good thing with the car scene right now is there's so much stuff, you know, whether it's, I went to an import car show in Killeen, Texas. What was that? 2 days ago. And then the day before that, I went to my local Blue Bonnet Car Festival. So like I went from one show where everybody's 80 to where everybody's 20. And it was just interesting to see the two different things, but I like it all. I mean, it's, if you build something cool, I want to come take a picture of it. And even if it's just for you to use content for your page or for a manufacturer or something like that, it's like, we all just have to work together. And cool cars are cool. It doesn't matter what labels on the badge or anything like that. So, and I got invited to the import show because my buddy builds big lifted trucks, and he goes, well, we need another lifted person there. And I own one lifted truck, and it actually belongs to my wife that we built for SEMA a couple of years ago. And I was like, I might have to change if people are thinking I'm a lifted truck person, but I'm not. So
well, I appreciate, we met, what, 10 years, maybe 12, I don't know, at the Optima Challenge when you were shooting over at Pahrump in Nevada. And
well, I promise after today, I will actually do a CarBuff network profile because I can't be on here and not have a profile. I know you made one for me, but I've got a lot of newer stuff. As soon as you started posting my old logo, I was like, I need to update my logo and profile and everything. So
I had to encourage you somehow.
Yeah, just shame me into it. That's all you have to do.
Well, thanks everybody for being a part of it, part of this panel discussion. Our goal is to help people connect, make it easier to make connections and grow something or organically that's going to benefit the industry as a whole, and kind of guiding guiding the direction of the industry, we can do it together. And that's really our goal here, is to help kind of connect the dots, as you say, John, and really help the industry as a whole kind of get back to our roots. And I keep saying that, but it's important because social media has kind of spun us out a little bit, I think, over the last 10 years, and getting back to the core of the industry, which is relationships. And we can do it. Like, this is a platform that we can do that on, and I can go to Tucci's page and see who they trust, right? I mean, that's really the bottom line. There's no 1-star, 5-star rating on CarBuff. It's either I do business with this company or I don't. And if I don't, you just won't hear about it from me. I'm not going to badmouth them. But if I do, you're going to know it because I endorse them. And that's really the way it should be. That's the way it is in our industry. No negativity. There doesn't need to be any of that. It's just simply, we do business with these companies. If you need a recommendation, this is who I'd work with. And that's really, I think, how it needs to be. So thanks everybody for being a part of it. We will do this again next month on the 3rd Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And we will also be sending this recording out at least, I would say, Thursday. We'll get this out. If you guys want to share it, we'd appreciate it. And please come back, and please share the message with others that you think would benefit from just the information on here. Have a great week, and thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Trent.
Thanks.
Take care.
We'll see you guys.
Bye, everyone.